Hello, welcome again to Jason's in the House. I'm your host, Jason Parisella, real estate agent with Keller Williams Realty in Beverly. And our guest today is Joe Cunniff. He's the owner of Power Outage Services Company. The company has facilities in Topsfield, Salisbury, and Kennebunk, Maine. Welcome, Joe. Nice to have you on the show.
Nice to be here.
Good. Why don't you start out, as I normally do, to tell us a little bit about you and your company.
Okay. The company's a couple of years old. It's here on the North Shore. I grew up here on the North Shore. I live here with my wife, an 8-year-old son, and we're building a business that's going very well.
Excellent. So what were you, let's see, you...
I was in banking and construction before this. So
how did you get into the generator?
Well, it's a kind of a long story. The long and the short of it is that the basement flooded. I needed to figure it out, and I put a generator in, and used to look around when I was in banking and wonder how many other guys like me needed a generator.
Interesting.
Then I moved over.
Yeah, it seems like it's become more and more popular, generators, especially where, I don't know what the percentage, you had any idea what numbers are potentially of? It seems like there's more outages and things like that, but maybe not in this area, I'm not sure.
There are more outages. The grid is getting older, and the electric companies are trying to keep up with it, but yeah, there are a lot more outages.
Okay. So what's the typical reason why a person would install a generator?
The main reason is comfort and peace of mind. You know, we have hurricanes coming up. We have other sorts of things, just windstorms, things like that, that cause power outages.
Yeah. I was just thinking of this too. What's the #1 cause of the outage? Is it?
It's
what causes the outage?
It's typically wind related to a storm or a heavy weight on trees and then ultimately on wires.
So it will break a connection on a wire or a transformer or something. Like
right, and then transformers pop and it often trickles down.
Yeah.
So
okay. And then when you're backing things up, I mean, I know from personally, there's different levels of what you can back up. Different. Right. We'll talk about that. Different sizes of generators. But when you put a generator in, what are some of the minimum things you'd want to consider?
Most people that are looking for a generator, like I said, they're looking for comfort. But a primary reason people put generators in is because of sump pumps.
Okay,
sump pumps, and then next is heat. After heat, you see a lot of people put them in vacation homes. And then, you know, when you have your heat and whatnot, then you're thinking about your refrigeration and your freezers. We had a customer who lost a great deal of refrigerated food, frozen food. It was expensive, and they ended up putting a generator in for that reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good point, that the sump pumps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing, too, is from being a real estate agent, I noticed that you get people that install the sump pumps, a lot of times will put a backup to the sump pump.
Right.
I'm not sure how reliable that is, or if it
yeah,
I know it's not a generator, but I'm wondering how reliable that is.
I think they're pretty reliable, but they only last for a certain amount of time.
That's true, yeah.
And you know, a lot of times when we go in and put a generator in, we see that people have a battery backup and have exhausted it because of the amount of time of the outage. You know, some of the outages recently, particularly in some of the more rural towns, has been up to 3-4 days, and the battery backups just don't last that long.
That's a good point. That's only going to last. I wonder how many hours they even last. It probably depends on the...
I think it's some 8 to 12. I'm not absolutely sure.
So maybe a kind of a day or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
8 to 12 hours, but it's not going to be a...
No, it's not going to be
a full day cycle or anything
right.
like that. So is there one system that somebody would just go pick one and put it in the house, or how does that all work?
Yeah, it goes by the house and then by the way the people live. So typically when we go in and talk to somebody, we find out what they want to do. Do you want to run your whole house? Do you want to run part of your house? And then how do you live? For instance, if we're putting one in with a big family, then you need a bigger generator. If it's a couple that's you know, in their 60s, 70s, you might put a smaller generator in because they're just going to run their heat and a couple of lights. So it all depends how the size of the house, what they have in the house, and then how they live.
Right, right.
You get a sense of that when you talk to them.
So so some of the sizing when you go to get the generator, some of the sizing is going to depend on what they want to back up, how they live, as you mentioned. Any other factors that are involved with?
Cost is a factor. Where they can put it. You know, there's places, there's some towns that don't allow them near property lines. Very few towns that don't allow that. But then whether they want it on automatic or whether they're interested in doing it manually. If they're interested in doing it manually, use a gasoline one and a manual switch.
Yeah.
An automatic one, of course, you don't even have to be home, and it just comes on and takes care of everything.
So there's a multitude of levels of generators. So one you just start it up and...
Yep. Yeah, and then the automatic ones you don't have to start up. It senses the power loss, starts the machine, powers the circuits that it's supposed to power, or power the whole house. And now there are switches like this one here that is we call it a smart switch, and it can drop a load, pick up a load. So it's really nice. So let's say you do have a number of sump pumps, you can put what we call a digital load management module on it, and it'll maybe drop the freezer for a few minutes while it picks up if all the sump pumps come on at once or something like that.
Oh, I see. So is that, so you're saying, so the generator is only going to be able to generate a certain amount of electricity.
Right.
So if it has to choose between a freezer and a sump pump,
it chooses the
it will
sump pump.
choose the sump pump and drop the freezer.
And that's the way
I see.
It's the way we hook it up. And
is that how you put those switches in? What was it called again?
A digital load management switch.
So is that part of every estimate that you do, or is it?
No, it depends. For instance, if somebody wants to run their whole house and they don't want anything to drop off, then we just put
we
put a bigger machine in. And if
I see.
What it allows us to do is it allows us to reduce the cost, the size of the machine and the cost of the machine on a larger house.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So you referred to the switch. So this is a switch for a generator.
That's right.
Now, is it different size switches? That seems to be quite a large switch. Does that go inside the house or outside the house?
Well, this is a NEMA 3 panel. NEMA 3 means that it can be outside. We do put these inside. Typically, everything we buy is NEMA 3. We can buy NEMA 1s. This is a 200 amp NEMA 3 switch, and this is actually a smart switch because it has this computer module on it, and this tells takes a signal from the generator that it's getting overloaded, and then it drops everything and then picks it up slowly.
I see.
So it's and this one we can either use as a whole house switch, where we power a whole house. We can use it as a smart switch, or we can put a sub panel off of it and just run certain circuits. And it all depends again on.
So this will carry, I know we need to, so the generators are sized differently too, but this switch will carry a house that has up to 200 amp service coming in?
Yeah, well, you can do one with a 400 amp service, but then what you do is a sub panel off of this.
Oh, I see.
So there's a lot of different ways to configure it, and we try to configure them the most cost effective way for the customer.
Okay. So if somebody has for example, my house, I have a 200 amp panel coming into my house.
Yep.
What if I had a 100 amp, which is I see a lot as an agent, a 100 amp panel?
We'd put a 100 amp.
No, you wouldn't need a 200 amp switch.
No, they have a 100 amp switch as well.
So is that half the size of that? Or is it
maybe 3/4. Yeah, it's not half the size, but it's.
Do you ever find problems trying to put that somewhere?
Yes, yeah, all the time. And a lot of times we end up putting them outside because we can't get them inside somewhere. Right.
Now, does the switch itself make any noise?
It does. It makes just a. When you're running your washing machine, you hear it change from one cycle to another, and it goes bang.
Yeah.
That's what you hear it when it comes on. You hear it when it shuts off.
What actually switches on and off?
This thing right. This is a solenoid. This is a solenoid. So up here, your main power from your street comes in here. Okay, and that is controlled by this side of the switch. Your generator power comes in here, and then your load to your house goes from here to wherever we're going to put it, whether it's another load center or a sub panel or your regular panel. And when it senses that the power is missing, starts the generator. 10 seconds later, and when it goes through all its systems to make sure everything's right, and then it flicks this switch down using there's a relay behind here, and it tells it for the solenoid to energize and pulls the switch down, and then the generator powers the house.
So actually, the way it works is the main power from outside goes into the switch first before your panel?
Yep. Yep.
I see. So you actually have to take the...
Well, that all depends. This is what's called a service entrance switch. So this goes in front of the main panel.
Yeah.
Okay. If we don't have a service entrance switch, then we're taking another circuit breaker off of your panel and just powering all the circuits that are going to be on this switch.
Okay.
To the sub panel. So again, there's a number of ways we can hook it up.
Which way? Is there a better way to do it, or is it just does it depend on the configuration of them?
It's customer preference on what they want to run, and then what we have available to work with that determines which way we're going to set it up.
Okay. So you mentioned, so the switch can go inside or outside. This particular one can go outside.
Yep.
Are there any generators that are inside? I would imagine they have to be outside.
You can put generators inside. Everything has to be to code, and it also has to be to manufacturer's specifications. You'll read, they usually come on a skid if they're going to be inside. What I mean by a skid, there's no cover. The motor's exposed, the generator piece is exposed, the fan is covered, but you can get at it. But the manufacturers specifically say which ones can go inside, which ones can't.
How do you deal with the noise on the ones that are inside?
Well, it depends where you're going to put it. If it's going to be in an area that...
like I'm thinking if you put it in your basement, is anyone...
You'd hear it.
You'd hear it, yeah. Basement, it would...
Yeah, and then what you'd do is you'd insulate around all the walls in that room. And it would...
How many have you done? Are you normally putting them outside or inside?
We typically put them outside.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way of when they want them.
Somebody would want them inside if they want to protect it from the weather for a long period of time. But typically, and a lot of fire departments don't want them inside.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too, the whole...
Yeah, and the fire department has final say. You know, if they say no, then it doesn't go. Even if it's rated to go inside, they can say no.
Now, the other thing that comes to mind too is the noise of neighbors and... I mean, have you...
Well, it's not...
every town must be different as to the ordinances and the decibels and all that stuff.
There are ordinances in towns. The one that I'm most familiar with is in Gloucester.
Okay.
It has an ordinance of 55 decibels. So if you put a machine next to someone's property and they're standing next to it, it should not be louder than 55 decibels. Now, the machines typically are between 62 and 65 decibels.
Okay.
So you've got to move it away from the property line if that's going to be an issue.
Now, do you actually have a, what do you call it? Is it a decimeter?
We borrow it from somebody because when we...
So, but do you do that to make sure that it doesn't...
We've only run into it once, and we used we went and borrowed a meter to find out whether we were okay. Yeah. And we weren't. We had to move the machine.
You had to move it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then some machines louder than others? Like if you...
Typically, no. They all range in that, whether it's all the brands seem to be just around 60 to 65 decibels.
Now, I was looking to, there's an air-cooled machine and a water-cooled. Isn't the water-cooled supposed to be not as loud as the... That's
true. That's true, but it's only by a few decibels. It's not terribly noticeable.
So what would be the advantage of a water-cooled or an air-cooled?
A water-cooled is a more robust machine. It will, it's made to carry a load for a long period of time. Although that said, I've seen air-cooled machines that have run for 3.5 months at a time.
Oh wow!
Which you're kind of surprised. You just shut them down, change the oil, and turn them back on.
Huh.
I have a customer in Peabody that's got one that ran. They had a place next door had a fire and burned out all the electrical on the side of their building, and they ran their generator for 3.5 months.
Oh wow! Yeah. You just kept going and
just change the oil every X number of hours. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So is this something the homeowner can just go ahead and install it, or how does that all work?
No, you need
go to Home Depot or whatever and buy one. And
you can buy one at Home Depot. You need a licensed electrician. You need a licensed gas fitter to put them in.
Okay.
You need to pull permits, and everything has to pass inspection. So it's best to have a professional.
So when you go buy one that's a gas-operated one, how is it connected?
The gas ones can either be connected to your natural gas line that comes into the house.
Just say it's the one you just pour gas in it with. It's like a lawnmower, and you just Yeah,
those are all portables. The portable.
Yeah, so you buy a portable one.
Yep.
How do you get that portable one to work with your, when you...
what you do is you have a switch installed.
I see.
And there are switches that you can get them in 6-circuit, 10-circuit, 12-circuit, 18-circuit configurations. And you need to size the switch with the size of the machine you buy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no matter what, to make it work, any size generator, you need a switch to be installed.
Unless you just run extension cords into the house from the generator, but that's...
No, that's true. You could just to plug in your TV or whatever.
Right. You could do that.
That would be kind of...
Yeah. It could be cold if the door's open.
Yeah. Okay. So there's propane ones.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the fuel types. I have gas in my house, so could I use the gas that's coming into my house to hook up to the...
Yep. Yeah, you can use the natural gas. There's basically you have gasoline, you have propane, natural gas, and diesel. Those are the four fuel sources. And the gasoline is typically the smaller machines, and they're portable. They're on wheels, basically up to about 8 kilowatts. They do sell them bigger, but typically those are for construction sites and whatnot.
Okay.
Then you get into the propane and natural gas. Now, propane and natural gas, the machines are interchangeable. Propane burns at a hotter temperature, so what you do is you use what's called an orifice, and you reduce the amount of propane entering the machine. And then some of the bigger machines or different areas, you need diesel because you don't have access to propane or natural gas.
I see.
So you'd put a diesel, we'd order one with a diesel tank underneath it, and it's set up for diesel.
Okay. What about the propane tanks? Any concerns about having a propane tank and then the generator close by or anything like that?
Yeah, the propane tanks have to be 10 feet away from a generator. A 100-gallon tank, which is one like this, can be put just about anywhere, even on the property line. Once you get into torpedo tanks, they have to be 25 feet back from a property line. So you need to think about how you're doing that. And some towns also don't allow them to be buried anymore because they can be forced up by the, if there's groundwater, that will pop it out of the ground.
Yep. So we talked a little bit, so the propane tank has to be about 10 feet away. Mm-hmm. The generator itself, is there certain distances from the house, or how does that all work as far as placement?
The generator itself, on the smaller ones, the air-cooled ones, they have to be, you go by manufacturer specifications. There's one manufacturer that says you can put theirs 18 inches off a house. Another manufacturer is 60, and it's because of the cabinet. The cabinet that are composite, they can catch fire, so those have to be 5 feet or 60 inches off the house. The metal cabinets can be 18 inches off the house.
Okay. So that's more has to do with the manufacturer.
Right. The bigger machines have to be 5 feet off the house.
Okay.
Even in a steel cabinet.
So once this thing starts running, how much fuel do they take? Are they burning a lot of fuel? I mean, compared to having your house on regular electricity, by the power company, and then it switches over to the generator, how much more are you spending?
You're spending considerably more. Propane and natural gas, it costs a lot to run these machines. But then again, when you compare that with your insurance deductible and the headache of your basement flooding or your pipes freezing for the few days that it's going to run, it's worth the money. So
which one is most efficient? Which like gas, diesel?
Natural
gas.
Diesel is probably the most efficient.
As far as the least amount of cost.
Right. Diesel. It would be diesel first. It would be natural gas next, and I'm not sure where gasoline falls in there, and then propane. Propane would be the.
So when you have it hooked up to your gas for your house, you're really sucking a lot of gas into the.
Right.
I would imagine.
And a lot of places a lot of houses or businesses we go to, we have to have the meter upgraded because we need a certain amount of. Not only do we need pressure, but we need throughput.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So the pipe coming in is usually big enough, but you need a meter that's going to.
That's right.
Pull more through.
And typically, when we do them in older neighborhoods, we'll go and we'll check with the gas company to find out what's in the street. And if they don't have enough pressure in the street, then we have to bring in propane. But we also then have to check with the fire department to find out because they may want to know that there are two sources of gas on the property in the event there's a fire there.
So, in an ideal situation, what do you think is an ideal situation for a homeowner as far as? Do you prefer them to have gas in the house, or do you? I mean, what's your?
We don't have a preference. No, it doesn't. Either way, I mean, what we like to do is we like the pipes and everything to come up inside the box. So no matter whether we're coming from natural gas or from propane, we're trenching.
I see.
We like a nice, neat installation. So it doesn't really matter which one.
Doesn't really matter.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the expense to operate them, so it's going to be more money, obviously, than having
your electricity.
Yep. The other thing I was thinking about too is, most of the time these things aren't going to be running.
That's right.
So they are, I guess, everything's relevant, but you weigh the options of if you didn't have a generator and you lost things, or if you buy one, they're going to cost you some money to install it.
That's right. Yeah.
The thing I think about is, so it sits there for a month or two, and then when you need it, the thing doesn't start up.
Yep. Well,
I mean, how do you? Is there a lot of maintenance? How do you? Does it check itself?
It checks itself once a week. They each, every manufacturer I know, aside from the portables, They have to run once a week or their warranty's no good. So if you shut it
I
off,
see.
the warranty's void. But they run once a week just to keep, just like anything else, you want to keep it limber. And then you do want to do the periodic maintenance on it, annual maintenance, where you change the oil, the filters, the plugs. You basically have a car engine there.
Yeah.
And it needs to be paid attention to. And then you want to check it before storms and things like that to make sure that that you don't want it to break before the storm.
Right. So at least once a year you want to do so you're doing an annual maintenance.
Right. Right.
It's going to turn on, would you say, once a week?
Turns on once a week, runs for, depending on the manufacturer, runs between 10 and 20 minutes.
Okay.
And you can either run a load on it on some manufacturers, or you don't have to, and other manufacturers you just run just the machine. It doesn't pick up the load, doesn't pick up the house.
I see.
So,
and then obviously if you know there's a storm coming or something, you're watching the weather, then you want to
you might
manually go out.
pressure. And with our customers, we have contracts, and what we do is we drive around and check all of our customers' contracts. We'll take 2 days before the storm, we hear of a storm, and we go and check
So
everything.
you'll automatically go through and just check them all and make sure that they're...
And the purpose is that then we know which machines are, if there's an issue, we take care of it before the storm.
Right.
As much as part of the service is you go out and take care of machines, the few machines that you get a call for is better when there's a storm. So.
Yeah, especially where it's the middle of the storm trying to go out and fix a generator.
Exactly.
So what happens if the generator's gone, it just doesn't work, and the customer calls you and says, there's my generator's, I'm on your maintenance contract and it's not working.
Yeah, with our maintenance customers, and I don't know if other vendors do this, we will roll up another generator.
Oh, okay.
And hook it up, and we'll get them at, we may not hook up the same size. We have 8 kilowatt portables, and we'll get them heat, we'll get their sump pump going, and we'll get them some lights so they're comfortable.
Oh, good.
And we had a customer in October that they had 3 small children, and it was nice. It felt nice for me to be able to walk in their house and see their children were warm. The TV was on, and it was our generator that was taking care of them.
Yeah, that's good. So what about the maintenance? Can that be done by a homeowner, or is it generally done by
the maintenance? Can be done
or?
by a homeowner. The homeowner has to keep detailed records on what they've done, when they've done it, or they can pay a company like ours to do it.
Yeah.
And it's there's a schedule that you follow that you need.
So is that all part of the warranty?
No.
No.
The warranty is something different. The warranty is there's a few different warranties depending on the company. One company has a 5-year warranty, another company has a 3-year warranty. Both of them, the ones that I represent, you can buy up the warranty to a longer period.
I see.
But if you don't do the maintenance, then the warranty is void.
Okay.
So, and you have to have records on the maintenance and when things have been done.
That's what I was getting at. So if you don't do the maintenance, your warranties...
That's right.
So you have to follow their...
They're prescribed.
And record it so they know you have a record of when you did it and everything?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'm assuming, too, you have to be an authorized dealer?
You do.
For these companies?
Yep. You have to be. You have to go for training, and all of my guys are trained on the machines we work on. And
how many different manufacturers do you
we represent? 2.
2?
We represent Generac and Kohler.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there? I mean, there's got to be a lot of different.
There's not as many as you'd think. There's a Winco. GE makes some. And then there are some brands that are made by the other manufacturers. So sometimes I'll open the lid of one and I recognize the machine and it's just got a different name on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's made by maybe whatever you call it, the main company or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So now somebody wants to decide they want to buy a generator. They start calling companies. What do they ask? What should they look out for?
Yep.
What are some of the differences? I'm assuming most homeowners are not going to have any idea what they're really going to end up getting.
Yeah. Basically, you want to talk, interview a few people, find the people that are knowledgeable, and give you exactly what you want. And a lot of people don't know exactly what they want, but
that's what I'm getting. Yeah.
The person that is representing the company should be able to walk them through and make them comfortable with their purchase. And then the references, they should be able to check references. Things you should be looking for are the neatness of the work, whether it was done on time. and make sure everything was inspected.
So you have to pull a permit for the whole job?
You pull a permit.
Well, you might have to pull it for a few different things.
You pull a gas permit, a electrical permit, and sometimes you have to get a permit from the fire department. And they'll come back afterwards. Every one of them comes back afterwards and checks the work.
Yeah, I was just thought of too, what about having an electrician? Just calling your electrician and having them put in a generator.
Electrician can put in the generator, and there's a lot of good electricians that know how to do it. They're, you know, they will have to bring in a gas guy. They will have to do the trenching. It's you kind of have to know what you're doing with them.
So you decide. So you're specializing in only generators.
That's all we do is generators, right? We do.
So which includes, and I'm not sure if a electrician would have this or not. But something maybe to consider would be the maintenance contract. You're a manufacturer's rep with a maintenance contract and everything, so that you're kind of handling the whole thing.
And most there aren't many electricians that do that. A lot of electricians will hand off the maintenance to us. It's not their bailiwick, but they can call. You know, electricians can call us, and if they're looking for, geez, I bought this machine. This isn't working, or how do I do this? We'd be happy to. We'll help any one of them.
So it doesn't. So for you, if an electrician installs it, and then you take over the maintenance, or somebody that already has a generator,
we'll take over.
They bought it wherever they bought it.
Sure.
You can still.
You'll
still do a service call and all that.
Yes.
Okay. So you do offer maintenance plans. We talked about that. Are there different ones that? Yeah,
we offer 3 different plans, and there are companies like ours that do the same thing. And our 3 plans are: there's a basic plan where we come out once a year, and we go through the machine completely, oil, filters, spark plugs. We check all the volts, the amps, the hertz, and we check the switch. And then the next one up is we do it 3 times a year, where we do the oil filters and everything once a year, but then we go through the system and make sure all the volts and amps. And typically it's when, as they age, you step up the check. And the third one is for people that people that are on medical systems that need a generator, or they have to get taken to a hospital. We back up. We cover those. Also, vacation homes, people have us cover on our highest level, so that we always know whether the power's on in their neighborhood, and if we know the generator is running or should be running, we'll either go check it, or we have a system that calls us and tells us that the generator is not or is running.
So these there is a remote system to these?
Yes. Yep.
How does that usually work? Like if a homeowner wanted to have the remote,
well, the remote
goes through their phone or the computer? Or?
There's a couple of different ways to do it. With one of the manufacturers, you go through the internet. Now, if the power's down and the generator is not running, the internet is not working, we're going to drive out there and find out.
I see.
There's also a device we can put in the home that works off a cell tower, and it dials us if the machine has not started. And within 15 minutes of it.
So that's all extra stuff.
That's all extra. Right, that's right.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
So you could really have a lot of backup with this thing to really make sure that it's.
You could.
Like you made a good point on a second home or something, which is probably even more important potentially to have a generator.
Yeah. We see a lot of that.
You still want to make sure you're not going to know if it's running or not, or what's going on with it. Yeah.
We have a lot of that up in Gloucester. We do generators from Cape Cod to Rockland, Maine.
Oh, okay.
And we do vacation homes, and that we do a lot of those sorts of things on vacation homes.
We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Okay. One thing I wanted to make sure, actually a couple minutes left. So one thing I want to make sure I covered real quickly, because we didn't really talk about it. There's so many different sizes and things. So so the size is going to be determined more on what somebody, like a whole house. Just give me an example. You will put the switch in for a whole house generator.
Yep.
What size generator are you going to need to get?
Well, it depends on the size of the house. Let's say somebody has a 3,000 or a 4,000 square foot house. So I'm going to recommend that they put in a 20 kilowatt generator and a load management switch, and we'll use 4 DLMs, and we drop 4 to 8 of their big loads. So we could drop 4 240 volt loads or 8 120 volt loads. And we're going to look for things that they don't necessarily need dryer. If they have a hot water tank on electricity, we're going to look for those sorts of things that aren't critical. We're going to keep the sump pumps on. We're going to keep the heat on as long as we can. Even the heat we can drop for 15 minutes.
I see.
But we're going to be looking. You make a priority order of what should be dropped and what should be kept on.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot to this. I didn't think there was that much to generate, but there's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a fun business. I enjoy it.
So if any of our viewers have any other further questions, how can they get a hold of you?
They can reach us by phone at 978-887-6500, or you can find us on the web at www.powerout.us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It was great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Well, thank you again for joining us at Jason's in the House. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions for me or comments or want to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach me at 978-927-6030, or you can visit my website, which is jasonparisellateam.com. Thank you to Webcam, and see you next time. I'm sorry, thank you to Bevcam.